Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today on this video, I want to talk about some mistakes that I've made and many people make during the fall that can really cause you to not catch as many fish as you should, or catch any fish at all sometimes. These are going to be three really important ones, but there's a lot of mistakes that you can make any time of the year, but these are, to me, three of the biggest ones that I tried to avoid overall. So let's go ahead, without further ado, just jump right into it. The very first mistake that I've made and many people make, and this is one that is easy to make because we get so caught up with what's going on as far as the shad migration into the backs of the creeks. Honestly, if you watch my videos and you're going out and kind of building a game plan based on the content I've been putting out recently, this is a pretty easy mistake to make because I've been talking a lot about how, the shad are moving into the backs of the creeks and that's where the bass are. But in reality, you really don't just want to be in the backs of the creeks at all times during the fall. That's a really big mistake, is to just focus on the backs of creeks. They can be really good areas to find fish in the fall. However, there are times, especially like early October, where I've seen this on certain lakes, like Chickamauga, for instance. Right now, there's a ton of shad in the backs of these creeks, and there's also bass. I know there's bass back there, but they're extremely difficult to catch. They're just not showing themselves as much. They're not busting on the shad, so I'm not exactly sure why the fish don't bite during certain time periods in the back of the creeks, but I have a feeling that has to do with the fact that there's too much bait fish in the backs of some of these creeks, that the fish just, they have no reason to hit something that is, an artificial bait, that even if it looks exactly like the shad that they're feeding on. So really, the mistake is just focusing on the backs of the creeks. The way to fix that is to not forget that there are so many good fishing opportunities from the main lake to not quite to the backs of the creeks, but like the first, 2/3 of these creeks. Bass are really, really active on main lake, especially on a system like the Tennessee River. Really, there's a ton of shad activity right on the main river channel. A lot of these shallow bars get really good this time of year, especially if you've got grass. And so some of the best fall fishing can be still on the main lake. So don't avoid main lake areas during the fall. The next big mistake is not matching the hatch extremely closely. There's certain times of the year where matching the hatch isn't necessarily a really big deal. Summertime comes to mind. Really, even though the fish may be feeding on a certain size shad, you can throw a really big bait and still catch those fish. But there's certain little windows throughout the year where the fish are so hyper-focused on one size class of bait fish that they will not touch any artificial baits that are even slightly off the size, profile, and color of the bait that they're feeding on primarily. And fall is definitely one of those time periods. You do not want to miss out on matching the hatch very closely. And what that generally means this time of year is that you really need to use smaller baits that match those very small 2.5, 3-inch threadfin shad on most of these fisheries. You need to be very deliberate with matching the hatch this time of year. So a lot of times during the fall, I'm going to be using smaller baits. So things like small swim baits, or micro-sized chatterbaits like the Mini Max from Z-Man, or the Baby Jack. Something along those lines. If I try to throw just a traditional size chatterbait, sometimes, I'm not saying on every lake and in every situation, but for instance, on Lake Chickamauga, these fish are super, super picky. And if you don't throw exactly the right size presentation, they're just not going to bite. So be very, very careful about matching the hatch this time of year. It is super important. Finally, another big mistake that I think a lot of people make is focusing too much on other types of cover other than grass. Grass is at its prime right now throughout the year during the fall. It seems like even though the grass is starting to die off, it doesn't look as fresh and green as it usually is. It's still one of the prime types of cover, if not the prime type of cover on most fisheries. Lake Chickamauga, I know I bring up Lake Chickamauga a lot, but that's because it's my home lake. Grass is really important right now. Throwing frogs over the matted grass that gets, it's getting matted as the water drops. The submergent grass, that is on the edge of the river channels and on the main lake bars, those are all areas that are absolutely the ticket right now for getting bites and getting big bites too. So grass is super important. You'll notice, like I said, that the grass is really not looking its best. It's starting to break down, but the bass really relate to that grass until it's completely gone. It is something that's super, super important. So a lot of people, they tend to go into the backs of these creeks that maybe don't have a lot of grass and things like that, and they wonder why they're not getting bites. But if you focus on areas that still have grass, even through into like December or even January, grass is just going to continue to produce. So definitely don't avoid grass. This is the exact time period that you want to focus on grass techniques, such as throwing chatterbaits and lipless crankbaits around submergent vegetation or even swim baits, and throwing like a frog over those grass mats or going in after them with some type of flipping, pitching, and punching technique. So anyways, definitely don't make the mistake of avoiding grass during the fall. So other than that, there's plenty of mistakes that you can make. As we all know, I make mistakes on the daily out there on the water, but those are three really big ones for this time period. If you guys have any other big mistakes that you think I should have added to this video, I want to hear about them in the comment section below. So go ahead and write that comment down below. And if you have a topic you want me to cover in a future video, I definitely want to hear about that too. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. I'm going to see you out on the water. Make sure you trust the process.